Welcome to Fireside on Sarita, a series of presentations on topics related to the Baha'i Faith. And each topic will be coupled with an open forum space for sharing, exploration, discovery, and learning. But before we begin, it is important to acknowledge that we reside on the traditional territories of the Cowichan tribes and the Malahat Nation, here on the west shore of Shawnigan Lake, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. Welcome to Fireside on Sarita, and to this, the second series on the Book of Existence. Now, we're going to look at several chapters of this book, and I say that slightly tongue-in-cheek because they're by no means chapters, but we will explore ways to peer into this wonderful book. And I say Book of Existence because Baha'u'llah called this world of existence the Book of Existence. For instance, when talking about the signs of God and the fact that God can't descend into creation, he's exalted above entry and exit and containment. He can't be in something. He's the creator. And I'm just explaining to you how the Baha'is view this. He's the creator. He's the unknowable essence, the unknowable essence of essences, the uncreated, the self-subsisting. He is all-knowing, and he is all-wise, and he does things according to his own ways. And we can wonder about it, but we can never understand why the Creator does things as he does, because he does things as he chooses to do things. And he expresses his beauty. He expresses his knowledge. He reflects his own self in the Book of Existence. And Baha'u'llah says, all these signs are reflected and can be seen in the Book of Existence. And in another passage that we studied earlier, he said, look at the world and ponder a while upon it. It unveileth the book of its own self before thine eyes, and revealeth that which the pen of thy Lord, the fashioner, the all-informed, hath inscribed therein. So he brings in the idea of the world of existence as a book upon which the fashioner, the all-informed, the creator, has inscribed his knowledge. There is nothing that we can know about our Creator that is not to be found in this Book of Existence. But how do we access it? How do we peer into it? How do we turn its pages? To follow the analogy, how do we read this book? So what we are going to do is explore some techniques, and I will say in short, the way that we look into this world of existence is through scientific knowledge. That certainly is one of the ways. We need effort, we need purity of motive, we need to be sincere in our approach to it. So if you want to know, you must be sincere. You must sincerely want to know. And only you know whether or not you are sincere. Of course, the Creator knows. When I was a boy, I had the great privilege of spending 2 weeks every summer with my cousin at my grandparents' summer home, Victor Villa, on the shores of Georgian Bay. And it was a wonderful, wonderful place. It had A beautiful, long, sandy beach, a boathouse, a dock, a little cabin that was all ours to enjoy. And we had the run of the place as long as we followed my grandfather's rules. And while there were strict rules about when we went swimming, we needed to have supervision to be swimming in the lake, especially when we were younger. But we could play on the dock. We could fish off the dock. And every once in a while, well, more often than you would want, something that we didn't want to end up in the lake ended up in the lake and went off the edge of that dock. And my cousin and I soon realized that the best way to locate it was to take your scuba mask and place that scuba mask on the surface of the water. The moment you did that, you could peer down and see with absolute clarity right to the bottom, to the sandy bottom of the lake. And then you could locate the object, and once you knew where the object was, then you could get permission, and Grandpa would let you go and dive down and retrieve it. And it was especially important if it was something especially important to my grandfather. So we learned this technique. So my suggestion is this, that scientific knowledge is like that scuba mask placed on the surface of the world of existence that allows us to peer down and to see what is to be seen, to learn what is to be learned. And in this way, we get to peer into the chapters of this book. Now, you say scientific knowledge, and you're probably saying, well, I'm not much of a scientist. Well, I'm going to suggest that you're far more a scientist than you probably realize. And I'll use a simple analogy. A garden. Now, think of what a garden is to you compared to what your garden is to a cat. To a cat, it is a place where it sniffs things. It's a place where it can maybe eat some grass. It's a place where it can dig a hole in the soil and bury what it needs to bury. It is a place for shade. It's a place to bask in the sun, hide. But to us, a garden is a place of cultivation. Soil has a very different meaning to us. The cat doesn't know a weed from a flower, but we do. And we tend to this garden, and we cultivate it. And we enjoy its beauty and its fragrances, very different from the experience of a cat. And all of these things that belong to our experience and our perception of a garden are windows into which we can peer. They are scuba masks on the surface that allow us to peer down, to learn about ourselves, and to further our understanding of how we ought to be and what we can be. This is the wonder of the book of existence. Everyone has access to it. You don't need a degree. You don't need to be wearing special garb. You don't have to have a special name. You don't even need to know how to read or write. But you can read this book. Now, I wanted to speak very briefly about the divine unity. And the divine unity is written in three ways: capitalized, divine capitalized, and in all small case letters. Those ways of writing divine unity seem to be rather interchangeable. In one sense, the divine unity speaks about the relationship between the Creator and his manifestations. As I said before, the Baha'is believe the Creator to be unsearchable, unknowable, unapproachable, absolute, and beyond our comprehension. However, he has created these intermediaries that allow us to understand our Creator, that allow us to understand ourselves, and allow us to progress, allow us to take our first tiny, halting steps on a path that has no end. And I hope that we can begin a few faltering steps here at Fireside on Sarita. And our first chapter is called Sapling. Now, to complete our discussion regarding the divine unity, we will look at another way in which this term is applied, and that is to the manifestations of God as a whole. And Baha'u'llah explains to us that the manifestations of God have appeared throughout the ages. While there is human expression, there must also always be a divine manifestation of God to guide and teach us and sustain us, that they are creations unto themselves. The Word of God is an entity high above all that hath been and shall be. And Abdu'l-Baha explains that just as the sun may appear at different points along the horizon, and thereby be given different designations, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, or they may be named by signs of the zodiac, they are nevertheless the same sun, the same light. But in another, more particular sense, it is a fresh sun and a fresh effulgence of the life-giving rays of the sun for planet Earth. And in this way, the manifestations of God relate to the world of the human heart, in that they impart their life-giving, sustaining rays to the world of humanity, bestow fresh capacity, knowledge, guidance, draw us closer, create unity. Now, the third expression of divine unity, and the one that impacts most directly on the book of existence, is this. Regard thou the one true God as one who is apart from and immeasurably exalted above all created things. The whole universe reflecteth his glory, while he is himself independent of and transcendeth his creatures. This is the true meaning of divine unity. He, who is the eternal truth, is the one power who exerciseth undisputed sovereignty over the world of being, whose image is reflected in the mirror of the entire creation. All existence is dependent upon him, and from him is derived the source of the sustenance of all things. This is what is meant by divine unity. This is its fundamental principle. What does this tell us? This tells us that the universe is an expression of the Creator, just as the manifestations of God express the Creator, just as they reflect his image, so too does the universe. Just as they reflect his knowledge, so too does the world of existence. And what this tells us is that there is a message quality, a message intended for us in all created things. So if we look at a sapling, then we have to allow that sapling to tell us, to reveal to us its message. What is its message for us? And we do this by just talking about a sapling, by pooling our knowledge about what it is. And even the most obvious things about a sapling to us are not obvious to a cat or a deer. And those things, even the most obvious things, and sometimes the most obvious things are the most revealing and telling, and the largest part of their message to us. So we have to be careful not to overlook things because we take them for granted. So what we will do in the open forum section today is look at a sapling, talk about it, pool our knowledge, ask some pertinent questions like, here's one: how am I like a sapling? How is humanity like a sapling? How are children like a sapling? Those sorts of things. And see what the sapling tells us about ourselves. What is its message? Then we will look at a passage, a brief passage from Baha'u'llah, where he uses the image of a sapling and see how our discussion and sharing and investigation into the message of a sapling impacts our understanding of that verse. I thank you for your kind attention.